Welcome to the Occult Think Tank. My name is Greg, and in this video I am going to be crucifying Lee Strobel's case for Christ. And it won't take long to go through his 4 E's because I'm not going to subject you to the long-winded bullshit. We are simply going to get the 4 E's because this is primarily going to be a Bible lesson. Here is the first E.
So what are the 4 words that begin with the letter E that summarize the evidence for the resurrection? The first E stands for the word execution.
Now, we have execution. Okay? Everybody clear on that? So, the next is this one.
The second E is my favorite. It stands for the word early. We have early accounts or early reports that Jesus rose from the dead.
Okay. So we have early accounts. Okay. We're at 2. The third.
We've got a third E, stands for the word empty. We have an empty tomb.
And I would add, he has an empty head. But next is the last E.
Fourth word that begins with the letter E, which is the word eyewitnesses.
Okay, so his 4th word that begins with E is eyewitnesses. And he thinks, and a lot of Christians think, that this is rock solid evidence of Jesus. It's not. Because I can debunk or crucify these 4 with one I word. You ready, Lee Strobel, Christians? Here is that one I word. Irrelevant. All of them are fucking irrelevant. Why is that? Because Jesus dying on the cross. Let's just address this for the first part. The idea, because Christians make a big to-do out of Jesus dying on the cross, that this proves that their religion and their faith is justified. The truth of the matter is, it doesn't. Because the bottom line in that aspect is it's not about miracles. It's not about somebody being able to do parlor tricks. That's not what the Messiah was based on, for one. But, and I'm going to take down well, I can leave that one up so you guys can see what his aspect of the execution. Let's first start with that. Because Christians like him want to try and act like the execution of Jesus is so vital. Now, I'm not going to fully go into all of this as I did in the one video on Jesus is not the Passover anything, but I'm just going to briefly go through this, and I will give you book, chapter, and verse so that you can check this out for yourself. Exodus chapter 12, verses 1 through 14. If you're curious, by all means, read it. Christians, fucking read it. One thing you will not find in these 14 verses is one mention of sin. Not one. What you will also notice is Exodus chapter 12, verse 5. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. He shall be taken from the sheep or of the goats. This is not talking about a human sacrifice. This is talking about an actual lamb. Because up in verse 3, you will notice it says about and it's giving a calendar time frame. The 10th day of the month and so forth, that is dealing with the Jewish calendar. It is giving a very specific time frame. It's not even close to what is termed the Passover time with Christians, because I had talked to Mark Powers about this, and it was around October of last year that the 10th day of Nisan and so forth was happening. That is when this Passover was to happen. And it is clearly said, a lamb for a house. Why a lamb for a house? What is so specific? Why did they have to have a lamb for each house? Because, and it's one of the 14th day of the same month, the whole congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening, and they shall take the blood and strike it on the doorposts, wherein they shall eat it. Lee Strobel, the lamb, the Passover lamb of Exodus 12, had to be eaten. If you want to try and say that this was Jesus, that is cannibalism. They shall eat the flesh in that night, roast with fire and unleavened bread and bitter herbs shall they eat it. Lee Strobel, did the disciples cannibalize Jesus? That would explain an empty tomb, by the way. You weren't going to find him because he was cannibalized. If they're taking the Passover story literally, but if they're Jews, they wouldn't have thought the Passover had a damn thing to do with Jesus. Because why were they putting the blood on the door? It is mentioned down in verse 13. And the blood shall be for you a token upon the house where ye are. When I see the blood, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not destroy you when I smite the land of Egypt. It was about the God killing firstborn babies. It had nothing to do with sin. It was about the God not killing babies. Or from the Jewish point of view, it was about the God freeing the Jews from Egypt. That's how they would, to use the term, spin it. That it was about their being freed from slavery. The thing is, the blunt, in-your-face, here's what's fucking written in your book, atheist in me will point out and rub your nose in the reason for Passover was so the God wouldn't be a baby killer. Now, this idea of Jesus being an atonement for sin and giving the aspect of an atonement for others, or paying a ransom for many, as is mentioned in other places in Matthew 20, verse 28. And let me just first touch on this. This is from Psalms 49, verse 7. None of them can by any means redeem his brother, nor give God a ransom for him. It's not a matter of you're able to sidestep and pay for someone else, because, and that clearly goes against, or I should say this clearly goes against that. Even the Son of Man came not to minister, to be ministered unto, but to minister and to give his life as a ransom for many. No, absolutely does not work. The God of the Old Testament would regard that as an abomination. And that aspect, for those that are curious, the idea that Jesus was an innocent sacrifice and that everyone is wicked from birth, Proverbs 17, verse 15. He that justifieth the wicked, and he that condemneth the just, even they both are an abomination to the Lord. You do not sidestep personal responsibility by claiming to think something. It simply doesn't work. And the idea that Jesus dying on the cross was a good thing. Deuteronomy 21 verses 22 and 23. Christians, you really need to read your fucking Bible. Because it clearly says, verse 22, if a man hath committed a sin worthy of death, and he be put to death, and thou hang him on a tree. Verse 23, his body shall not remain all night upon the tree, but thou shalt in any wise bury him that day, for he that is hanged is accursed of God, that the land not be defiled which the Lord hath given thee for an inheritance. Jesus' death on the cross would have meant he was someone that was a man that committed a sin worthy of death. Now, what was that sin worthy of death in Jewish law? That actually comes down to what he mentions with his early accounts. Because Jesus saying about his claiming to be God, and that it actually means he's one with God, that they're the same thing. Really, Lee? Really? You want to try and go there? Clearly you haven't read the fucking Bible. Numbers 23, verse 19. God is not a man that he should lie, neither the Son of Man that he should repent. Hath he said that he shall not do it, or hath he spoken and shall not make it good? Bottom line, Lee Strobel and all Christians, this debunks Jesus and the claim that he was God. God is not a man or son of a man. You can't get away from it. You can't change it. You can't cherry pick it. The best you can do is try to rip it out of the Bible. The problem is the Jews will beat you with it. Because this is why Jews would have picked up stones to stone him. Because Jesus was claiming to be God, and no man can be God, because God is not a man or son of a man. You son of a bitch. You lying sack of shit. The God of the Bible is not a man or son of a man. That's what the words on the goddamn page are actually saying. And in case you're curious how it comes up in a Jewish Bible, Numbers 23:19. God is not a man that he should repent and that he should lie, neither the Son of Man that he should repent. Same damn thing. Lee Strobel, you are despicable. You are lying to people. But this idea of like an empty tomb, it comes down to, so what? You notice his entire case centers around the crucifixion and the resurrection. The problem is, it doesn't prove a goddamn thing. In fact, from the Messianic criteria, none of these are criteria for Messiah. That's not how the Messiah was going to be recognized by a Jew. It simply wasn't. In fact, the first one, execution, would be clear evidence the person is not the Messiah. Because the Messiah was to live a long life, and the fruits of his hand prospered. Isaiah 53. Now this, bear in mind, is how kings were perceiving. But be that as it may, Christians love to quote that the aspect of it pleased the Lord to bruise him and so forth. This isn't talking about Jesus, because in verse 10, yet it pleased the Lord to crush him by disease. Wait a minute, to crush him by disease? Was Jesus ever diseased? Did Jesus ever, in the entire New Testament, did he ever once suffer a disease? I don't fucking think so. To see his soul would offer itself in restoration, that he might see his seed. Now, let's pause right there. The word seed is the Hebrew word zera, which is child, your offspring, your biological child. There is another Hebrew word for a follower that is termed a ben. This is talking about the zera, which is a biological child. And if Jesus would have been the Messiah, he would have had to have had a seed, a child. But not just that. He shall prolong his days. Oh shit, were Jesus' days prolonged? I don't fucking think so, Christians. He had no seed. He never had a disease. His days weren't prolonged. The pleasure of the Lord shall prosper in his hand. The works of Jesus' hand, were they ever prospered? I don't fucking think so. He was a carpenter. And not from anything of historical record, there's nothing that Jesus made that has survived, that people have said, oh yes, this was made by Jesus. So the works of his hands clearly didn't prosper all that much. But the truth of the matter is, as I went into with my interview with Mark Powers on Isaiah 53, this isn't really about the Messiah. At best, what this could be looking at and talking about is the Jewish people as a whole. But that, I would say, watch the interview that I did with Mark Powers on Isaiah 53, because that is a full, like, an hour and a half interview where we go. He has us go through this verse by verse, completely pointing out and dissecting what this is talking about. Thing is, the empty tomb type of thing, Bart Ehrman also points out very well, and I would suggest anybody that is really interested in this subject should check out Bart Ehrman and his lectures on this subject, especially misquoting Jesus, because when it talks about the empty tomb and the women that were witnesses, he raises the issue of how many women went to the tomb. And, well, it depends on what gospel you read. And what were the names of the women? Well, it depends on what gospel you read. There are conflicts in the accounts. When you have a person that is, or witnesses, and this is getting into the eyewitness thing, when you have eyewitnesses that are in conflict over what they claim they saw, when they're giving different accounts, their credibility goes into the toilet. It doesn't matter who saw this empty tomb, because in the Gospels, they're not consistent with when did it happen. Depends on what gospel you read. Who saw this tomb open? Depends on what gospel you read. Who was there? Depends on what gospel you read. This is not evidence confirming claims. You have to be damn selective, because the aspect of Jesus did both thieves mock him on the cross or just the one? Depends on what gospel you read. To try and say that the accounts are perfect, it's perfect bullshit. It's perfect Christian rhetoric that is not based on fact. The thing is, all in all, this doesn't matter. Because Jesus throws all of you Christians, and Lee Strobel, you had best really sharpen up and pay attention to this. Jesus is throwing you under the bus. Lee Strobel, where are the blind, deaf, paralyzed that you have healed and the dead that you have raised? Where is the water you've turned into wine? Where is the feeding of the 5,000 that you have done? Let's see it, Lee Strobel and all Christians. Or was Jesus lying? Because Jesus very clearly said, "Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that believeth on me," that's all of you Christians, "the works that I do, he shall do also." Jesus is throwing all of you under the bus. You want to claim you're a Christian and that you believe in Jesus, even though Jesus was not a Christian, Jesus was a Jew. The thing is, you want to say you believe in Jesus? The works that he did, you shall do also. And greater works than these shall you do, because I go unto my Father. Thing is, Christians, you can't say that you have faith. That's not about faith. This is about, are you doing the work or not? Reason being, it's 2 verses earlier. "Believest thou not that I am the Father, and the Father in me? The words that I speak unto you, I speak not of myself, but the Father that dwelleth in me. He doeth the works." If the God is in you, and you believe in Jesus, it's not you doing it anyway. It's this God. So fucking do it. Don't run your mouth. Don't make excuses. Goddamn do it. Every Christian should be going around raising the dead, healing the sick, giving sight to the blind, going to cancer wards where children are and healing them left and right. We should be seeing all kinds of fucking miracles. Come on, Christians. Pony up the evidence. I want to see it. Or is Jesus a goddamn liar? I attest. Jesus is a goddamn liar. This does get me heated because this deals with how immoral Christianity is. It's not about your faith. It is not about your blind belief. Because let's be clear on something. The idea that eyewitnesses, and it is absolutely unreliable. And the last thing I want to play actually comes from The Big Think. And it is on the subject of eyewitnesses. Lee Strobel, Christians, listen up.
Is that we have now...
Sorry. How reliable is eyewitness testimony?
Eyewitness testimony, of course, is the single greatest cause of the conviction of the innocent. And what's fascinating about that is that we have now...
Did you catch that, Lee Strobel? Christians. It is the single biggest cause of the conviction of the innocent. And he'll explain why.
Now, 30 years, more than 30 years of fantastic research from experimental psychologists who have, recreated crime scene, recreated events, and played around with which different way we do a photo array or a lineup, and different techniques that are used correlate more with accurate and reliable identifications, and which techniques lead to errors. And a number of reforms have been adopted by federal commissions and the American Bar Association, the International Association of Chiefs of Police, lots of policing entities, based on really good scientific research. I mean, a lot of this research, there's meta-analyses, that's where you pull together lots of different studies, and you have a lot of confidence that certain things are real effects. And I'll give you some examples that may surprise people. For example, before you show somebody a photo array or a live lineup, you should tell the witness, we're now going to show you some pictures or people. Please keep in mind that the real perpetrator may or may not be in this photo array or lineup. And if you don't make an identification, don't worry, the investigation will continue. Just giving that warning dramatically reduces incorrect identifications without really reducing correct identifications. And that's of extraordinary importance, obviously, in terms of being able to go out, find the real perpetrator, and not arrest the wrong person. There's lots of reasons we think that this warning will reduce error. Certainly it inhibits people from guessing, and there's kind of a natural inclination to do that. Another reform that's of really critical importance is that the person that administers the lineup of the photo array should be double-blinded. That is to say that the person should not know who the suspect is. And that's important for many reasons, not the least of which is the possibility of feedback. Confirming feedback. What, again, meta-analyses have shown is that if you say to somebody, you picked out number 2, good, or give some kind of confirming feedback, whether a law enforcement person or somebody else, frankly, what this does is it can falsely inflate the person's certainty that they made the correct identification, the witness's belief that they had a good opportunity to observe, the witness's belief that they were paying attention when the crime was committed. All of these factors, by the way, certainty, opportunity to observe, paying attention, are all factors that the courts used to be using, or use, frankly, in trying to weigh the reliability of identification when we know that, let's say, some suggestive procedure has been used. So confirming feedback, or even just the use of an unduly suggestive procedure, can falsely inflate these so-called reliability factors, certainty, opportunity to observe, attention paid. And the legal tests are out of whack with what the scientific evidence shows.
Now, that is very important because of how much of a big issue people like Lee Strobel want to make in the idea of eyewitness testimony and putting so much stock and so much faith in eyewitness testimony, when everything we know scientifically as well as in criminal justice, eyewitness testimony is the worst, that it is the single biggest cause of convicting the innocent. Lee Strobel, let's be clear. You're not interested in getting at the truth. You're not interested in getting at the facts. You are interested in pushing irrelevant bullshit. Because there's so much more that I could go off on with the aspect of, and I'll do this last one, just because Christians like to rub and throw the soul that sinneth, it shall die, in the face of everyone, atheists and even the other Christians, or other people that aren't Christians. The idea that the soul that sinneth, it shall die. That, see, this is why you need Jesus. But Let's follow that through. The Son shall not bear the iniquity of the Father, neither shall the Father bear the iniquity of the Son. The righteousness of the righteous shall be upon him, and the wickedness of the wicked shall be upon him. How about the next verse? Christians never mention Ezekiel 18:21. The reason for that? But if the wicked shall turn from all his sins that he hath committed, and keep my statutes, and do what is lawful and right, he shall surely live, he shall not die. Of all the places where the Old Testament God could have mentioned a Jesus, a scapegoat, having an easy out, this was a prime opportunity. And the truth of the matter is, not only does it not say one word about it, the exact opposite is said. In order to be forgiven for something, you have to change your fucking behavior. Lee Strobel. It's not enough for you to say you think a Jesus died and rose again. So fucking what? It doesn't make him a Messiah. It sure as fuck doesn't make him a God, because a God, the God of the Bible, can't be a man or son of a man. You son of a bitch. The truth of the matter is, you're just looking for an easy out. It's all this is about. This is just like what you had been doing in the first place before you became a Christian type of shit. What you were about was all about you. Screw justice, screw what is right, screw what is moral. You simply want to have it all for Lee Strobel and fuck anyone else. You want to have it all for you and fuck the world. You don't want to have to be responsible for what you do, because that means you have to be a man. It means you can't be slapping around your wife, Lee Strobel. Yeah, bullshit, you were kicking holes in walls. I betcha. Spousal abuse is something that you could have been charged with, but she probably, like a lot of battered wives, kept her fucking mouth shut, because assholes like you would have beat her even more. I'm the wrong one to fuck with, Lee Strobel. I have absolutely no respect and no regard for a piece of shit that'll go after a woman. I am a hedonist, and there are times I can get pissed. But unlike you, I can tell you why I'm mad. And slapping around a woman, being abusive to kids, it's a big reason why I get pissed. If you couldn't explain why are you upset, then your anger is not justified. I venture to bet that there isn't a person in the comment section that won't understand exactly why this pisses me off. Because this is a very big and very serious social issue. People, feel free to leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section. And Lee Strobel, I dare you to contact me, because I would rip apart every claim you try and make. Your ignorance regarding the Bible would be exposed. Later, people.